Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today, we're going to take a look at the 2021 Land Rover Defender 90, something that obviously was new for 2021, but has been kind of challenging to get my hands on. That is until my friends at Hebert's Town and Country had this model traded in just this week. I got to say a special thanks to my buddy Shane at the dealership for giving me a shout and letting me know that it was there. So the Defender, obviously, when it was going to come back out again and completely redesigned and revamped and made more modern, well, obviously that was something that was highly anticipated. And while the 90, the two-door version that we're going to look at today, was supposed to originally come out in 2020 when the other Defender models made their debut, well, because of obvious reasons, that didn't happen. But now it's here for 2021, and I'm very interested to show you some of the interesting features that it has and things that, well, I'm kind of curious to know what your feedback is when you see how some of the things work and where they're actually placed. So let's take a quick look at what you can expect if maybe this is something you want to buy. And here's an interesting fact about my videos. In the videos where I fail to mention whether or not there is a turn signal indicator built into the side view mirrors, somebody will always ask. So I have to make sure that I always give the answer, and now you know. And as we take a look down here, obviously you can tow with these Defender 90s. What exactly can you expect those numbers to be? 7,716 pounds all the way up to 8,201. And with so many car makers going away from spare tires these days to the tire repair kits, well, I don't really have to tell you what the situation is here with the Defender, as you've got your full-size spare mounted right here on the back. Now, one thing that is interesting here, this is a British-built vehicle, of course. That explains why the rear door opens out to the right, which is where most of us are going to be loading from most likely here in America. But tell me down in the comments if you think that is a problem. And of course, if you ever get into trouble out on the trail or on the road and you need to let people know that you're there, that's what's inside the box right here. There is a triangle, a reflective triangle in there that I will show you how to get out. In fact, it's not that terribly hard to do, probably easier than closing this compartment back up. And cargo capacity ranges between 15.6 to 78.8 cubic feet. Obviously, the 78.8 will be when you lower these rear seats down. And just kind of taking a look here, we'll take a closer look at the rear seats shortly, but here are the Safari windows that you obviously have in the four-door models. But I don't know that they're as easy to see out of from this back seat vantage point. We're going to climb into the back seat and see exactly how much space you can expect to find. And before we climb into the back seat, I'll tell you one thing that makes getting back there a lot easier is lowering the suspension, the height of the vehicle. You've got the air suspension, so you can raise and or lower via these buttons right here. And I'll give you an example on the screen in real time of how quickly that happens. As we make our way into the interior, at least the front seat for the first time, if you haven't seen one of these Defenders before since they were redesigned and kind of relaunched, you can see you've got the exposed screws here, kind of giving that old school look, and just kind of a more rugged feel to what the Defender is. And the thing about it here, you can see I kind of have a multitasking area, at least that's what I would call it right here, of different things you could put right there. Let's see, would my phone fit right there? Let's see how well my phone would fit. Yeah, actually it fits pretty well. And the kind of, I don't know if I'd call that an oh crap bar, as opposed to other words people might use just to keep from getting demonetized on YouTube, but you could grab that. Probably this thing isn't fast enough to really need that, but when you're off-roading, that's a different thing. And yes, there are people who are going to take their Defenders off-road. I don't know how many, but maybe a few. If you have done that with your Defender, tell me down in the comments. And a little bit of connectivity right here. As you can see, a USB port, and there's a few throughout the interior. And just a quick look here. But here's what's interesting to me. If you have the seat in the wrong place, it's going to be a little bit harder to move that up. See how hard that was for me to do that right there? I had to kind of squeeze my hand in. But the good news is that you can move that up. So let's do that. And then we will get the seat out of the way. I don't know if I should try and do this on video, but I guess I'm going to. It might be a little shaky, and that means griping and moaning on YouTube. Oh, wait a minute. Am I supposed to say that out loud? Well, too late. I just did. Let's see here. So what I'm going to do, let's hop over onto this side since this seat is already back. And here's the thing, guys. Got the seat in my driving position, and look at that. I've got quite a bit of leg room. So that's not too bad. Now, like I said, those Safari windows, well, I think they're more for looks than anything else. You can kind of use the Safari window on your right or left, depending on where you're sitting, but it's still not quite as convenient as in the other versions. Now, you do have dual air conditioning vents back here. Let's see if we can pan down to that, and a good bit of connectivity. Like I said, there's more connectivity throughout the interior here. But I think Land Rover did a pretty good job of how they used their space here. You can see the cup holders down there on the floor. Not a bad thing necessarily. I don't think that'd be too hard to get to with a seat belt on necessarily. But let's talk a little bit more about some of the features you're going to find right up there in the front seat. And I'm always curious to know who exactly is watching my videos. Tell me down in the comments section where you're watching from, especially if you're watching outside of the United States. Tell me where that is. By the way, if you're wondering to move the seat back, can you just touch it and it goes? Nope. You have to hold it down. So just so you know, but the good news is there is a lot more room back there than you probably would expect. There is one thing here in the front seat that you don't see very often in vehicles. In fact, you might already see it on your screen as I'm just pointing the camera at it. Let's see if I can do that one-handed. Yep, that's right. You do have a 3-passenger front seat, kind of in the way of a bench seat, not exactly, but very similar to that, something we just don't see a whole lot of in this day and age. One thing I must give kudos to Land Rover for, a lot of the time when it comes to finding the release to lower something such as this seat right here, you have to hunt really hard to find the release. Well, there's a really big one right here. You don't have to use a magnifying glass, but I can't do it one-handed, I should say. I need 2 hands to do this, so I can't put that down one-handed, but trust me, it does go down. And as we make our way in to the driver's seat, one thing you might notice here, how do you adjust the steering wheel? There doesn't seem to be a release anywhere at all to do that. Well, believe it or not, it is here, but this is a British-built vehicle. That would likely explain why it's located here on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. Nothing against my British friends, that's for sure, but we'll just go ahead and fire everything up here. And of course, you're going to notice right off the bat, as you hear the Land Rover Defender chime, there is your navigation on the instrument cluster, which is very helpful to the driver, keeps you from having to glance over here to the infotainment screen. And you notice that blinking on there. That is not a problem with the vehicle, because people will likely say that in the comments. That is an issue with the shutter speed of my GoPro, which I don't know if there's a way to fix that or not. Tell me down in the comments if you know. Steering wheel mounted controls and Land Rover Defenders come standard with blinker levers. That means, see what's going on there on the dashboard right there? Those arrows up there, that indicates that the blinkers are on the driver's side, I should say here, or passenger side, and it also lets people around you know what you're doing. Imagine the novelty of doing such a thing, especially here in Shreveport, Louisiana. And the controls for the windshield wipers and all that good stuff right there. And just a quick look at what you have here as far as there is the button to turn the engine on and off, and here is your shifter, of course. Pretty easy to figure out. Now, one thing you'll notice that's not here are shifter paddles, if you're wondering about that. Well, you can still manually make your way through the gears with that 8-speed automatic transmission. As you can see, there's a diagram on the top of the shifter that pretty much lets you know what you can do, and obviously you can gear up and gear down accordingly. We'll go ahead and put that back into park. In fact, before I do that, let's take a look at the rear view camera. And obviously you've got multiple views there. As you can see, it's not really going to be very usable or easy to see, I should say, right here as far as what it actually does, but it does tell you a lot if you're off-road as far as what's going on with your vehicle and stuff like that. And then towing, of course, going to change the view there. And you do have the overhead camera, but that's not the only camera that you have. Let's work our way through the infotainment system here, and I'll show you some of the features that you have here. There are a lot of features here. Obviously, you can set up your trailers, I don't have anything in here right now. I don't know if there just never was anything or they erased it, but you can add a trailer right there. And depending on what you're going to be towing, obviously you can just make the proper selection. So kind of nice to know that that's there. But let's work our way down here, show you some of the features that are available here with the Defender. But the main thing I wanted to look at here was the cameras. And obviously you have a true 360-degree view camera here because you can work your way all the way around the vehicle. It literally gives you a live view. So what I'm going to do here, as you'll see, right now the driver's door is closed. Let me find the handle there. And now you can see that it's open. So it's a pretty cool option there. I like that. It's cool. It makes it very easy to see what's going on all the way around your vehicle. A lot of us who are old enough remember when there wasn't such technology. For those of you who have never lived in a time when there wasn't this kind of technology, well, believe it or not, we used to have to just know what was around us. And obviously you can see multiple views here. So a really nice system and just a lot of information here. Of course, you can use your navigation and all that. Very easy to use, very easy to figure out. If you've never had this kind of technology before, don't be afraid of it. It's easy to use. Now, let's talk a little bit about the functionality down here with the air conditioner. You might wonder, well, how do you turn the fan speed up or down? Well, notice the fan right there with the arrow button. There's a reason for that. There is how you do that. So I'm not going to turn that up real far because I don't want to blast anybody with the fan speed noise. And if you want to raise and lower the vehicle from the inside, you can see right here, that's how you do that. I showed you that earlier, and just a lot of great features and functionality, obviously, that you would expect to see here. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting here is the control for the sunroof, more Safari-like than what you might normally see. What do I mean by that? Check this out. It's not actually a shade. Everything's just kind of built together with the glass and the shade that is up there and everything. The only disappointing part was that I couldn't actually get out and stand up because there's just not enough room to do that. That would be kind of fun to do out on the trail or wherever you might be. So let's talk a little bit about getting down the road in this model. There is one engine option only, and it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged, putting out 296 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Of course, this is a 4x4 model, as you would expect. And power makes its way to the ground via an 8-speed automatic transmission. And tell me what you think about this. Looking from this angle, even with the hood up, we can kind of see that the aerodynamics are not exactly the best in the world. Not that they're intended to be, but the estimated MPGs come in at 18 miles per gallon city and 22 out on the highway. What do you think about that? So as we start our test drive, one thing I forgot to mention, another British-like feature I would say here, is the fact that the knob for the radio is also on the right-hand side. You can probably see that on the screen earlier when we were looking at the air conditioning controls. And again, I'm not trying to put my British friends down. I promise I won't even try and do a British accent because that probably would offend somebody if I did that. But just some interesting little things, but I think it's cool to have stuff like that, actually. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just little things that I noticed here. I haven't done one of these in quite a while, but it's really kind of a neat thing to have things in a different place and not have just another, kind of a typical vehicle. Not that any Land Rover is necessarily typical, but as I cruise down the road here, even though this road isn't one of the worst around, you can hear the road noise. You're driving over bumps and all that kind of stuff, but for such a short wheelbase vehicle, about 101 inches in wheelbase. And if you're wondering what exactly is wheelbase, that is the measurement from the center of one tire to the center of the rear tire, the center of the front to the center of the rear, whatever the case may be, in either direction. So it's not the overall length of the vehicle, it's actually really from axle to axle is probably the best way to put it. And it really is a lot to do with how the vehicle rides, because obviously the overall length doesn't necessarily make a difference in that respect, but the wheelbase does. But I have to say, from what little I've driven here, I'm not going too far away from the dealership today, but I've been pretty impressed at how this little short wheelbase Land Rover has really soaked up the bumps quite well. And you know what? I can't really say anything sarcastic necessarily about that truck and trailer that just turned in front of me, because honestly, I came around the corner as he was somewhat in mid-turn. So for those of you who like to hear my sarcasm towards bad drivers, well, I guess I can't really say anything there, but never fear, we may get another opportunity here in just a minute as we hop out onto one of the busiest roads and one of the most common places to find bad drivers here in Shreveport, Louisiana. As we get moving here on to Burt Coons, let's see here. I might be able to do a little bit of, well, maybe not. I was going to try and do a little bit of an acceleration test, but you know what? That might not be the best thing. In fact, I think we're going to have to stop right here because most likely, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to be very careful here. Yeah, I'm going to let this person go here in this Infinity because I'm nice like that. So now we can get up here and keep going. But I won't be able to do an acceleration test, unfortunately. Well, maybe a little bit. Just a tiny bit. If I could tell, it really was kind of starting to pick the front end up a little bit. Not off the ground before anybody says anything in the comments, because I know how you YouTube folks are. It's not trying to do a wheelie or anything like that, but I could just tell that it was kind of planting the power to the ground, even though it's not a lot of horsepower, but still a very impressive vehicle to drive nonetheless. I think the thing that I'm most impressed with is the ride quality is overall very impressive. Not something you typically get with a shorter wheelbase vehicle. Everything is easy to get to, it's easy to use, easy to learn, all that good stuff. If you need to get down the road, getting up to highway speed and merging into traffic at higher speeds is not a problem, even with the smaller engine compared to maybe the 3-liter engines that you would get in some of the other Land Rover models. Of course, we won't compare it to the 5-liter engine. So as always, I'm very curious to get your feedback. What do you think of the 2021 Land Rover Defender 90? I'll tell you what, you don't have to wonder if there's a spare tire or not. That's a fact. It's quite an interesting vehicle, and I was really surprised at the ride quality, especially considering the fact that I have my own personal test track for testing shocks, suspension, and ride quality just by driving around the roads of Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey guys, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle, and of course my friends at Hebert's Town and Country for giving me the opportunity to borrow this Land Rover Defender for the day. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out another of the videos that's on the screen right now, and I will see you there.